Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. With patch 9.15, we now have that overwhelming choice of being able to pick any playstyle we want to from the 4 different covenants. It can sometimes already be hard choosing the class, the spec, and the legendary you want to run, but now you have the covenant choices, which will be expanded even more on in patch 9.2. If you're coming back to the game for the new updates, you might even be paralyzed between all the different choices, which is why in this video I'm going to recommend you 5 different builds that I've personally been enjoying, between class and covenant combinations that have been super fun as of recently. I haven't finished trying out every single combo just yet, there's way too many out there in the game, but eventually I will. Until then, here's a list of some of the playstyles that I've enjoyed tremendously as of recently for one reason or another. Fury Warriors made a return in 9.15, and I've played one just recently and they're so fun. Honestly, it is the better playstyle if you're someone who doesn't really enjoy the sluggish and kind of the feast or famine playstyle that Arms and its rage generation may offer. Warriors got buffed in 9.15. A lot of classes did, with their AoE caps being lifted, so abilities like Bladestorm and Whirlwind did more damage. You also had an Arms warrior buff towards one of the conduits where, after Bladestorm stops spinning, your Whirlwind will do like 160% more damage for a short amount of time, scaling with your conduit level. But while this is an Arms warrior buff, technically it also buffs Fury. In a janky way, the conduit does work for Fury as long as you talent into Bladestorm, and Fury has Bladestorm as a talented ability. But you can also run Torment the King's Legendary, which is quite popular, in order to randomly proc Bladestorm whenever you press your main cooldown Recklessness. Recklessness we can get back quicker because of anger management, where as we spend rage, we are able to get certain cooldowns back quicker. When you play this Fury Warrior as a Kyrian, you get Spear of Bastion, which is very easy rage generation that you get to spend on a very short cooldown because of a Soulbind of Mechanicos, further reducing the cooldown of that ability. And then Whirlwind, it doesn't cost you any rage, you just press it whenever you want to. The damage amp from the conduit is big enough, and the cooldown reduction mechanic that you get to play into it allows you for a lot of Bladestorm, so if you're going from a trash pack to a trash pack, you should basically have your cooldowns up for it every single time. So if you miss a very short cooldown based spec that has answers to every single encounter, and that feels a lot smoother than Arms, which sometimes can get a lot of rage and other times not, Fury is a lot more consistent for it. If you miss this fast-paced gameplay, Fury is back in 9.15, and you guys should definitely give it a go. You can pair it with a Night Fae if you want to, but I really recommend going Kyrian. Rogue is my main, but at the beginning of Shadowlands Alpha and Beta, I actually thought that Rogue might not even be the class that I'll stick with. I actually went in with an open mind in case Blizzard messes up the spec, but with every single update they keep making it better and better, and right now it's fantastic for 9.15. For rogues, I don't really have a spec that I want to recommend. You can play whatever you like, all of them are pretty good right now. But no matter what you do, please do yourself a favor and pair it with a Necrolord. Especially if you're a new player, the biggest complaint that I get from players just picking up rogue is that they run out of energy. Which, if you played rogue before, it sounds a little silly. It's just kind of how energy works. You spend it, it regenerates, sometimes you can use abilities to get energy back, but it's just kind of, it's normal and it's natural. But if you're having a hard time picking up rogue and you feel like your abilities are way too expensive, then Necrolord is kind of like the cheat code to bypass any of that. The ability of Bone Spike is so inexpensive. It's ridiculously cheap for the energy and the damage that it does. And the common points it can generate in a Mythic Plus scenario, or even in a single target situation, smooths out your playstyle altogether. If you play Assassination Rogue and you feel like Rupture, Garrote, Slice and Dice, and Venoms, that's a little bit difficult for you to maintain. Your Bone Spike can get in between of your rotation to generate you at least 2 combo points on a single target, which means maintaining Rupture or getting back-to-back Envenoms during Vendetta window is far easier. For Outlaw Rogues, there's a multiple of reasons as to why Necrolord might be amazing, but more common points means more finishers means better cooldown reduction, and that means you'll always have Blade Flurry in every single trash pack. Maintaining debuffs like between the eyes of the enemy is far easier, and now you have zero excuse as to why your Slice and Dice is ever fallen off. And even subtlety, like especially when you're learning the spec and you're trying to get cooldowns down and you're not able to pull energy that well, Bone Spikes just kind of give you those training wheels to give you something to press, especially when you're super low on energy. Do yourself a favor, especially as a new player, play Rogue as a Necrolord. It'll just be a much smoother playstyle overall, or if you're someone just who wants good feeling gameplay rather than like the highest damage that may even feel janky, this is probably the best good feel gameplay that doesn't really have the most amount of damage loss for choosing this covenant. A lot of you guys recommended I should try Necrolord Paladin, and I finally did it, and I've probably had the most amount of fun playing my Paladin ever in Shadowlands. The Vanquisher's Hammer, the Necrolord ability, is a very short CD. It's only 30 seconds, so you get to use it pretty regularly inside of your rotation. Definitely should pair it together with the Necrolord Legendary, which gives you 2 charges of the hammers, and the hammer itself will give you 2 procs of the Wombo Combo ability, depending on your spec. For Red Paladins, which is a spec that I primarily play, it'll make it where after using the Vanquisher's Hammer, the Necrolord ability, your next Templar's Verdict will also trigger free Divine Storm. With that legendary, you'll have 2 of those charges saved up. So it kind of gives you this wombo combo. You get a free ability for using a single target ability, you get a free AoE one. As someone who gears majority of my alts through Mythic Pluses, this is a fantastic combo. The free AoE abilities in Mythic Pluses definitely feels really good, especially with Divine Storm now being uncapped in 915. The damage is really not that bad either, but for me what's the coolest part is Necrolord Paladin can actually kind of work. It was the worst covenant for the longest time, and finally in this patch it feels pretty good to play, and a lot of you guys picked it up as well. Specifically for PvP, a lot of Paladins are swapping over to Necrolord to get that big bursty damage with the Templar's Verdict with free Divine Storms. Especially deadly in AoE scenarios. If you just bubble, pop all your wings, and just unleash that amount of damage, that could be really fun in big group gameplay. Paladin is a weird class because there's some parts about it I like and some that I don't. The part that I dislike about it is sometimes the holy power generation can seem sporadic. You can either get procs where you just get a lot of it, or sometimes you don't get any procs and you're just kind of starving. With the hammer being on such short cooldown, it feels like now you have a button to use whenever you need it, so your holy power generation becomes smoother. Second, the spec is so front-loaded into wings, which for some players it's a bit of a turn-off. You want to be able to have some sort of sustained damage outside of your big button cooldowns. So for this Paladin spec, if you are going to be front-loaded with wings, having a way for you to be able to bank up a bunch of charges to unleash once you have your full cooldowns rolling is super satisfying. So I think Necrolord might be the best for me at the moment, and if you are playing Paladin, definitely give it a go. Demon Hunters get a couple covenants to play with. Normally most of them are Night Fae, but recently a Venthyr build has creeped up. As someone who always wanted to make Venthyr Demon Hunter work since the beginning of Shadowlands Alpha, the fact that it finally works is something I wanted to dive into. You guys recommended me this one as well, and you said this one does a ton of single target damage. With 9-1, Demon Hunters got a new legendary for their covenant, where it amps up the damage of Sinful Brand and allows I-Beam to extend the duration. That alone wasn't enough to make it the best choice, but it was an alternative playstyle for Demon Hunters. But with 915, they reduced the cooldown of Sinful Brand further, so now it much easier lines up with your I-Beam, and right now it actually is a decent choice for a pure single target build. It's not only single target because you do get to put Sinful Brand on every enemy when you press Metamorphosis. So if you're tanking group things together and you Metamorphosis to slam down on all those enemies, you could debuff all of them and use an I-Beams to extend that Sinful Brand damage. Most of your damage for the dungeon ends up being this button. Demon Hunter's always been a class that synergizes well with borrowed powers. Back in Battle for Azeroth, Corruptions and Essences were some of their biggest damage output instead of auto attacks, chaos strikes, I-Beams, blade dances, which is silly where other classes have like their class abilities do a lot of damage. For Demon Hunters, their borrowed abilities did a lot of damage. And now with Venthyr, you can actually kind of recreate this playstyle, but the way that this dot works is super weird because it's a damage over time ability. Demon Hunter is a class with a bunch of zoom, fell rushes, blade dances, I-Beams, chaos strikes, but you don't think of it as a dot class unless you play Venthyr, and then you will have the strongest dot in the game, which is just so weird, funny in a little bit, but also cool because finally this covenant kind of sort of works. It is super cheesy too, and you know I love cheesy builds. Just being able to like bank my Metamorphosis for like the biggest trash bag of enemies and then slam down meta on them and then I-Beam them all. Oh, is it satisfying. I'm even doing some weird things in keys where I would just Sinful Brand an enemy, but I won't hit them just to let the brand tick out the longest, just to see how big this damage can be in my overall for that dungeon. Definitely not super ethical PvE gameplay, but I've been having a lot of fun with this class, and if you want to play Demon Hunter, something that's easy to get into that isn't necessarily Night Fae, definitely check out the Venthyr Demon Hunter. It's been a long while since I've really played Frostmage, actually like Shadowlands Beta and Alpha, and I messed around with it here and there, but I've never actually picked it up and put a build together. And then I found out you can play your Frost Mage as a Necrolord, and it actually works. I've always wanted to have that skeletal form work for one of the builds of mages, and I think this is the first time where it's an actually legitimate playstyle. Technically, Frost can play as any Covenant, but I really wanted to pair it with Necrolord, and that 3-minute cooldown synergizes pretty well into it. But also, since last time I've really looked at Frost Mages, they've gotten a lot of changes. One, they have very short CDs. Like, Icy Veins is normally a 3-minute cooldown, but with a Conduit, while you crit while Icy Veins is active, you can reduce the cooldown of the ability heavily. So if you remember the old Frost Mage, this one is a little different and it feels much better. In terms of gameplay, you're still going to be Ice Lancing, Frost Bolting, Blizzarding, and dropping down Frozen Orbs. But if you're a fan of like simpler gameplay, where you don't need to think about rotation too much so you can do the mechanics, it's a great spec for it. It's super accessible for any player, whether you're someone who's played the game for a while or not for long at all. The ease of gameplay, something that generally gets me to not want to play that class, but Frost Mages are just so easy to pick up. You don't necessarily need to be a pro at this spec in order to do well in dungeons. The Necrolord playstyle with Frost Mage gives you incredibly good cleave, whether it is your lances that are cleaving or your frostbolts that are cleaving enemies around you. It is so good together, and it's just so much damage where you can focus down on a singular target while getting free damage on the side. It just synergizes really well. And honestly, you can play a mage as any Covenant you want to. For mages that are pushing keys, all 4 Covenants are competitive right now, which is really cool. Now, a lot of classes get to experience that, and this definitely would be one of those classes because of the longevity of gameplay. I'm recommending you to try Necrolord Mage, because Necrolord Mage isn't something we expected to become good at any point of this expansion, and it's actually kind of works for Frost and Mythic Pluses. But even if you end up getting tired of Necrolord, there'll be other options for you to try in the future. And that's probably the best part of choosing a class and picking the one that has so many different viable Covenants. But besides Mage, I think that's going to wrap up this video and my full list of classes that I would recommend. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. This was really fun to put together, and I'm very excited about what the next patch is going to bring. Next patch is going to be adding tier sets as well as double legendaries, where our characters will be able to rock a normal class legendary together with a Covenant legendary. Hopefully some of those Covenant legendaries will see some tuning, because some of them are definitely stronger than others. With 9.15, Blizzard gave us the ability to change to whatever Covenant we want to play, and hopefully they'll continue that trend in the future patches. Just being able to switch around different builds and try all kinds of viable playstyles, and even the ones that are less viable but might be fun or might even have hidden potential, has been probably one of the best parts of this patch. Anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the classes and Covenant combos that I've picked? And also, if I missed any fun ones that you guys think that somebody else should try in the comments, let them know, or hit me up on Discord and give me some build ideas. I'm yet to try all the different class Covenant combinations, and I'd like to hear from you guys which ones I should try next. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in the next one.